This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Welcome back to Journey to June. I'm your host, Wendy Basilico, and I am the founder and owner of Live Your June, and we are here to instigate your soul of who you're born to be and the impact you're meant to be. And we are interviewing people that have walked my path that I feel are making a huge impact in the world. And if you are someone that are in like halfway and wanting to make a difference or wanting to find a purpose, this interview is someone you want to listen to. Betsy King, welcome. She is a Hall of Famer. How many? I just always say 32 wins, but it's 34 wins on the LPGA, 6 majors. Welcome, Bets.
Thanks, Wendy. It's good to be back with you again.
Well, the reason I wanted to have you back is because we dove so much about your mindset, about playing and what it was like to be a tour player. And we talked a little bit about your second chapter in your life of making a difference with Golf Fore Africa. But I wanted to dive in because this is 18 years. Mm-hmm. You're kind of closing that chapter. So I wanted to pick your brain about how you actually navigated this path to find your calling. So tell me this, Golf Fore Africa. How did that name even come about? Tell me the beginning of the journey of what this foundation, how it got started.
Well, I think first that you have experiences that influence you that really make a difference in your life. And I think for me, I had the opportunity to travel to Africa with World Vision, who we ended up partnering with to make a difference through Golf Fore Africa. But it was what I saw there on the ground in Africa, poverty like I'd never seen before. And I just said, I want to come back and make a difference. And I went with a friend, her name's Debbie Casada. And I think that's one thing that was helpful for me was I didn't do it alone by any means. And Debbie and I started Golf Fore Africa in 2007. And we just started using golf, which I had been obviously on the tour for 28 years. And every week at a tournament, you have a pro-am. And that's how they raise some of the money for the tournament. That's how they raise the money that goes to charity. And so I just said, well, let's start using golf to make a difference. And that's how it started. So I used something that I did have expertise at and brought that to the table. And then Debbie had areas that she was expert in. She had a company where she was owned the company with her father, but basically was in sales. And so she was pretty good at asking people to make donations. And I met a lot of the people, by playing golf with potential donors and friends, family, et cetera. And that's how it really got started.
So let me go back. You retire. What year did you retire?
2005, at the end of 2005. And then I took this trip to Africa in 2006.
So even before that, when you retire, because you're kind of at the crossroads right now. So when you retire, I'm just thinking if anybody's listening and they're either, selling a company or they're in their kids left, what was going in your mind? I just want to shut it down, or were you seeking?
Well, for me, every athlete, you get to a point where you're not competitive, and that was what was happening with me. And I did go through the death of my father. He died in the fall of 2005, and then my mother, had dementia, so that I needed to help take care of her. So there were things that happened that got me to that decision. But I still had a tie with the tour because I was the Solheim Cup captain in 2007. So I did still go out to some of the tournaments on the tour, and I was working on that at the time. So I wasn't completely away from the tour, but obviously wasn't practicing and playing as a tour player. So, I actually, when I was still on the tour, we had done a project through our Christian Fellowship group where we had raised money for a village in Tanzania back in 2001. And we were supposed to go to visit the village, and when 9/11 happened, the trip was canceled. So I had some experience there with understanding, what was going on in Africa a little bit, and with a desire to make a difference.
What so it's in your, because you've already done some work back in that time. When you finish, obviously you're also mourning your dad, which is hard. First parent to pass. What was his name?
Weir, Weir, which is, it was a family name, my grandmother's maiden name, like Mike Weir, the Canadian golfer. So I think he's the only person in my life that's ever had that name, other than my brother, who's named after him, and my nephew as well.
So what's happening, I guess, because I lost my dad also 21 years ago, kind of jolts you in a way of thinking of life differently, I feel. So was that also, besides retiring, that's a lot to take on? A loss of a parent, your mom not doing well. What was going on in your transition into the space? Because you can get, I remember myself being really, it was a dark place, because I wasn't sure if I should continue to play or leave my family, or what should I do, where should I live, when my dad died, because it was sudden. But what was going on in your head to kind of move you in a direction of what brought you to Golf Fore Africa?
Well, I think you're right. You aren't sure what's next. For my father, he was a doctor, and he was diagnosed with cancer, but it was very quickly. He found out in June and he died in September. So it wasn't instant, but it was, a fairly short process. And, I was dealing with that. I remember at the time, because my performance wasn't that great, I was asking other players who I knew that had retired, what made you retire? Because in golf, it's kind of up to you. I mean, I had status that I could keep playing if I wanted to. Some people are forced off the tour because their performance, the status that they have, they lose their card and aren't able to play. But I could have kept going. So it really was my decision. I remember asking other players, well, what led you to retire? And, there's a variety of reasons, but probably the illness and death of my father was a big part of it. And the fact that I wasn't playing well enough, and the fact that I wanted to stay home with my mom.
How do you, in that moment, obviously, like the obvious of all the things you had to handle, but how do you connect to get that answer? Like, what is how you navigate that space of the unknown?
Well, I think, my faith is central in my life. So I would say I prayed about that a lot. I don't know if there was never like a ding, this is it. But, the circumstances that are there, that happen. And I think that's one thing. Like, I'm in the position again, I know we talked about this before we came on air, where I'm closing that chapter of Golf Fore Africa and what's next. And I'm very comfortable without having the what's next right away.
Yeah.
And I think that's important when you're in a position and I don't know, maybe it's a job and you want to change jobs and you start looking. You don't necessarily have to quit your present job to look for other opportunities. Maybe you work on that while you're still in this present job. And then when the door opens, that's when you take the step.
So true. Because, there's probably like people listening that, or even in a job where you outgrow it, or it could be a transition where someone's passed, or you have to move because of something. And it's easy to go, oh, I should jump. But sometimes it's just like giving it space,
right,
to unravel where you're supposed to go next.
Right. Or you can work on what's next without completely giving up where you are in the present.
Yeah.
Until you have things more prepared.
Love that. Okay, so now we're in 2007. You take this trip. Describe to me what you actually saw that moved you so much that you were like, I cannot walk away from this. I
think probably the two things in general were, here we have poverty in the United States, but when you go to, and on that trip it was Rwanda, Kenya, and Zambia, when the majority of the country is living in poverty, that's not the case here. So that's number one. It's the vast majority. It can be 80 to 90% of the population is living way below what we would consider the poverty line here in the United States. And then secondly, there isn't a safety net. There are lots of safety nets in terms of government funding through different programs, et cetera, local programs on the ground through churches and other charities. And that is practically non-existent in a lot of countries around the world, poorer countries in particular, and Africa for sure. So those two things are what's different about poverty, internationally as opposed to here in the United States. And that's what really struck me. And it also has a big impact on women and girls in particular. Girls are the ones that are often tasked with walking for water in the morning. I mean, can you imagine to be here in the United States without access to clean water, running water, or sanitation? I mean, it's a very small number of people that live in that situation, where in Africa, it's the vast majority. Mm. So that in and of itself, it affects girls and women the most. And women, they are the heroes there, because not only are they taking care of the family, part of the culture is that the father often is not that involved in raising of the children. And then secondly, they often are the breadwinners. So they're doing everything. It's tough to be a woman in Africa.
It is.
And you've seen it too. So
yeah, I mean, I think of that Purity woman, mm-hmm. and just, I wasn't there when you guys went before mm-hmm. she was, the town was requested to get the well. Mm-hmm. So you had seen them 6 months prior to the well. Mm-hmm. So can you describe even that group, just to get a picture, because you were there,
right?
Purity, and what was going on with her and her kids? And
well, the kids all suffered from malnutrition. You see pictures in movies or TV or in print about the distended bellies. I had never seen that in person, but they all had that look. What clothing they had was tattered. They're barefoot, not clean. And there was impurity. There was such a feeling of hopelessness. I know there had been some abuse within the family circle, because there was some extended family there too, say parents of Purity. I can't remember exactly, but if you were to sum it up with one word, it would be hopelessness. Mm-hmm. That's what we saw. And so back to you, when you arrived after they had gotten clean water, just access to clean water, what a difference it made. So you can describe that.
I love how she's throwing this on me. No, yes. I mean, when we walked, first of all, we get to see the process. So if you are fortunate to go on a trip with World Vision that's doing this phenomenal work around mm-hmm. water, you get to see the process of a community that has nothing, and then you get to see someone that actually has hygiene, that is learning hygiene for 6 months. They still don't have the water, but they have to prove that they're all in. Mm-hmm. And that's what we came in to, celebrate, that the well was there. Mm-hmm. So they still hadn't had the water. And that woman, her name was Purity, had taken us around her little village mm-hmm. that was, again, I wasn't there prior, but I saw the pictures. So mm-hmm. it was totally clean. They had a process of how to be hygiene and take care of their dishes and take care of how they clean themselves. Mm-hmm. And then what I remember her saying is, and I remember I was in such awe, because everybody's like dancing and singing. And when she says, it's not just the water, it's a mindset shift, that I actually have hope. It goes back mm-hmm. to the hope. Mm-hmm. So to me, this work is yes, we all need the water, but we're actually giving them hope to see things in a different perspective of what's possible. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the work that you've done in 18 years. You've given so much hope to everyone, and Purity's one example.
Very much so. I you think about it when you all you can think about is where my next meal is coming from and how am I going to get water. You can't think about what are the dreams for my children And so once that happens, it just opens up a whole new world for them, that now it only takes me 5 minutes to get water as opposed to hours to get water. And it's clean water. It's not water that's going to make me sick. So now my kids are in school. Now there's a chance that they are going to get an education and that they're going to have a better opportunity to, have a better job. It moves everybody out of extreme poverty and up the rungs to more. And just to have a food source. Now I can grow my crops better, and now I'll have extra that I can take to market and sell. Now I have more money for myself and to take care of my children. It's amazing to see. And, I've made 25 trips to Africa, and every time I've seen that happen, it's just amazing.
It's totally moving. So talk to us about navigating a foundation, and then we'll talk about World Vision. I think that's important, the partnership. But just, the beginning when we went with my mom in 2007, there was no foundation. You really were connected to World Vision, but we were just getting money. And talk to us like how you navigated to get in a rhythm. I feel like you did get in a rhythm early on that made some real impact for the donors on top of it, that they could actually feel the change they're making. So talk to us there.
Well, first of all, to become a 501c3 nonprofit, so that when people give you donations, it is able to be written off as a tax write-off. There's a process. And we were connected with an attorney. I don't even remember his name. Actually, we found someone else that had put a nonprofit together. It was a young man that was doing something through basketball and raising money for World Vision, and he had founded this nonprofit. So we talked with his father, and they connected us with this attorney, and he did it for free. Drew up the paperwork that we needed. It's submitted, and it takes several months. I mean, he said it could take a year to get your nonprofit status, but it literally was, I think, 3 months, and we got the letter that we're now a 501c3. And the reason that we did this was, as you say, we were having people donate directly to World Vision. We wanted to be able to have it come through Golf Fore Africa first. I was underwriting all the expenses at the time.
Yeah, I remember. It was our board was like, I didn't get on the board till 2009.
Right.
So it was just you and Betsy, maybe? Debbie.
Yeah.
And then you started to bring in Stacy and Catherine Hall.
Right. And I was underwriting all the expenses, and then because we weren't our own nonprofit, I couldn't write that off. And so, which it was a bit of a sacrifice for me. So I, once we became a nonprofit, and we wanted to reach people that within the golf community that World Vision probably wouldn't touch with their reach, as far as donors go. And so that's all. You just need to find someone to set that part up. And I think the biggest lesson is you don't do it all yourself. You bring in other people to help you. I've always known that to be true from learning golf. You don't become a champion by yourself. You need to have someone that helps you with your golf swing, helps you with the other parts of the game, the mental side, etc. And then you put all those things into practice. And the same thing with doing this. It's you can't do it all yourself. So
that's for sure. Let's take a pause, and then we'll get back to all how she navigated this amazing foundation. Okay, so Golf Fore Africa, you can't do it yourself. I would say you were the face. You were the one who pulled in all the players. Of course, you've gone over there, but then you had a lot of people doing the back end stuff. Right. And I always say this, even in my business, I am what you have to really find what your magic is. Otherwise, me doing the back end stuff is not my favorite. You're not. It's not your thing.
Right.
You are the face. You love to talk. When you're out in our events, you just did your event, you're just great at interacting with everybody. But it takes a while to figure that out. It's not like it happens when you're just by yourself with Debbie at the beginning. You're wearing 10 hats.
Right.
What would you think is the biggest struggle when you think of Golf Fore Africa, and what you've accomplished in 18 years, what do you think the biggest struggle in doing a foundation and like navigating the growth?
Well, I think for me personally, over the years, we've had a change in staff, and it started out, that I was doing it with Debbie, and then she left at one point. We had Kendall Dye, who was a player on the tour, who came off the tour at a little younger age, like mid-30s, not, where she was going to play till she was, 50, but and then she left kind of suddenly, and that was she had for good reason. She got her dream job with Ping, so golf company, and that kind of was challenging. That was probably the most challenging time because we're small. We grew at our max. I think we had 4 full-time staff, and yet we were granting to World Vision in our best year. I think 2-3 years we granted over $2 million to them in a year. So that was pretty good. We're by the time we finish here, the end of the first quarter of 2025, it'll be, I believe, $20 million that we'll have given to World Vision.
Ooh,
so,
awesome.
Yeah, but it's.
I think that's something like that's, I want to say, taken for granted. Like from people doing these, I mean, you're doing huge operations and it's not around the corner. So you're doing one in New York or New Jersey or Florida, and you only had a 4-person staff. And then you had, some people on the board would volunteer their time, or you had volunteers. I mean, to do $20 million and to have the staff, and you really kept it lean. That was one thing in the board, that we were keeping it lean. What advice, whether you changed how it was or whatever, what advice would you give someone in running a 501c, doing a foundation that they're passionate about? What advice, I guess, what did you learn around running it?
Well, I did learn a lot about 2 things. Partnering with World Vision, who they're the expert in making a difference. Coincidentally, they've been around as long as the LPGA. The LPGA was founded in 1950, and so was World Vision. So they're experts at helping the poor, and not just helping, but it's the catchwords today are sustainable help, so that once they leave an area, it continues. The community can take care of themselves, and so I learned what that looks like, and I'm not the expert in doing that. It would be much harder for me to move to Africa, try to start my own charity. I don't know the language, and try to start getting wells dug or mechanized system. It was much smarter to come alongside an existing organization that was expert in what they're doing and had a great reputation. So that took care of that part of it. And so what we were experts at was using golf to fundraise. And, we had me as the golfer who, was on the tour for 28 years, knew a lot of players, knew people within the golf industry that could come alongside and help us. And then Debbie, at the beginning, she was the one that had more of the administrative ability and the sales background. And, the last several years have been a little bit more challenging because I was brought into more doing some of the back. I've sent more emails than I care to do, and just the whole idea of communicating by email isn't my favorite thing. What's happened to and COVID impacted us like everybody else, where we didn't have an office anymore, and everybody worked from home, and to me it just makes it so much more time consuming than when you're face to face and can talk to people. And it wasn't my favorite way to do Golf Fore Africa, to be honest.
Yeah, because you're a master at connecting with the players, but also the donors, and also playing. Everybody you just went out. Even I think you went out with Mr. Crane.
Yes, Scott Crane. The day after the event, I had 4 donors that had come in town for our event, which was December 9th, and then they stayed over and we played another club on the 10th.
And she's still playing here in Florida while she's here.
Yep.
Tomorrow. Yep. When you think of World Vision, when you say sustainable, talk to us about that, because I think that is something that was special about our foundation and partnering with World Vision, because the donors really knew not only that the water was getting there and what well they helped with and all that stuff, but how does that work? So, I mean, I know how it works, but.
I think too, with World Vision, they'll go into a community for 10 to 15 years, and they'll address basically food, water, education, health, and economic opportunity, kind of a 5-fingered approach. They also do a number of other things, child advocacy, but basically, so they address those basic issues in addition to some others. And so at the end of that time, when they leave, the community can continue everything that they learned, and they're now it's sustainable and they can take care of themselves. So one other thing that I haven't mentioned that I think helped Golf Fore Africa was we traveled to Africa ourselves and took donors with us so they could see firsthand the work that was being done. And we did that for 2 reasons. One, to encourage donors to continue to support us. And then secondly, so that we saw the work ourselves, so we could say to our donors, we are seeing that your money is in Africa and it is making a difference. Because that's an issue that a lot of people ask you about. Well, how do I know that I give this money and it's going to go to this well in Africa? So that was important for us. So I think if you have a nonprofit, it's important to service your donors and have their trust, because they know that when they're supporting you, the work is being accomplished, and you can show them that.
Yeah, and I think you guys, our board, you did a really good job at making sure we had some proof of that, and we pushed hard on that, because I don't think everybody pushes hard. So we actually knew on the map of Zambia where every well was, where every water mechanism was. So I think that it's very beneficial as a donor, that if a donor said, hey, where's our money going? Here it is.
Right. It does make a difference. And World Vision is a big organization. I mean, World Vision U.S. raises about $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, but because we were raising millions, they were willing to give us, that kind of proof that we needed, because it is time consuming for the staff to have to go out to these remote villages, take pictures, interview people, get stories for us to share. So that was, and when we went there, we could do some of that ourselves. One year we did take a film crew with us, to get some footage and to create our own stories while we were there, in addition to what we were receiving from World Vision. So we were blessed in that if someone gave $15,000 to fund a well in a community, on average it would serve 300 people. We could tell them where the village was, the name of the village, how deep the well was, how many people it was impacting. So
Cool.
Yeah.
But even further, World Vision, and I don't know if we touch on this, I don't think we did, is World Vision has actually, there we go. World Vision actually has staff on the ground.
Yes.
Which I love when I went there, and I've gone twice. I hope I go again. But talk to us about the World Vision staff there and how important it is on when people come to visit, and how that really helped I think it also helped me trust even more.
Well, to me, the real heroes are the World Vision staff that live among the communities that do the work. They speak the language. When we go on a trip, we have a donor liaison. World Vision has several in Zambia, and they know the language, and they take us around along with some drivers, because you're going to very remote areas. But I love the way they work, because for the most part, they hire local people as much as possible. Say in Zambia, there's about 500 staff that are on the ground around the country, and probably 480 of those staff are Zambian. So it makes a big difference. It's not a bunch of people coming in from the outside and forcing this onto someone, because it's very important to get the buy-in of the villagers to make a difference And
I think that's the biggest.
it is.
I
it
mean,
is.
that is the coolest thing when you see
Mm-hmm.
they're all in. Every village that we celebrated for the well, to see everyone was participating.
Right. And because the World Vision just doesn't come in, do the well, and leave, they are trained in how to do basic repairs on the well. They actually collect some money, so they have money to repair the well. They form a water committee. You make a big deal about you're turning it over to the community, and this is yours to take care of and to keep in operation. So because they do all that, they've done studies, independent studies, were in wells that are put in by World Vision. After 20 years, more than 80% of the wells are still in operations. Other charities that do the work, it's about 60%. And the difference,
awesome.
the difference is their process and getting the buy-in from the community, not just coming in and digging the well and leaving. You have to train everyone in the community.
I mean, even there, and I don't know if what else you've experienced since 2017 when I went, but I think the other thing is once they get a certain number of wells in a certain area, then that's when you have the water mechanism to help the medical hospitals and the schools. And that we were making, the boys were making tampons and not tampons, but pads by cloth. And I thought that was so cool how they now, not only did they have water at the school, but they were educating the men about women.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
The World Vision and what we've supported are two different kinds of projects, or actually three different kinds of water projects. One is the well, which is a hand pump well within a community. Secondly, a mechanized water system at a health clinic or a school, and that's something similar to what we have here in the U.S., where you actually have pipes, running the water into the building. So there's taps. Students have taps to use, and then as part of that system, sometimes there's Western style toilets that are installed as well. So you're helping with hygiene and sanitation at the same time that you're bringing the clean water. So that's what we do. As far as that program, they were in Africa. They don't really use disposable pads or tampons. They don't have trash pickup, et cetera. They don't have access to buy those things. It would be more expensive. So they use reusable pads. So with this one school we visited, they had the junior high kids, including the boys, helping to put these together. They had a system, and they were washable, reusable, and it helps to educate the boys, to have them more sensitive to what the girls are going through. It makes a big difference. Anything
else you want to share before we talk about what's next for Betsy? But when you think of your whole 18 years, I know you've had many, how many trips total? 25?
25, I think.
Is there one memory around an experience that literally shifted you? Yeah. Is there anything that comes to mind?
And I to lead into that, we've kind of gone different directions in our 18 years. When we first started, we did some economic development, we did some housing, we built a medical clinic, and then we came upon water. And it's hard to do anything else if a community doesn't have access to clean water. So we liked that story. It was easy to share with people and make them understand, and it was important. We really felt if there was only one intervention you could make in a community to make a difference, you could only choose one thing, water would be what I would choose to do. And so I think that's one thing, that as you go down this path, at some point you might shift direction a little bit. That you started out one way and now you've gone a little bit different, in a different direction. And then I think secondly, you will make mistakes, and but you learn from those mistakes. It's important, and that it makes you better. When you make a mistake, if you're quick to realize that and learn from it, it really makes you better.
I feel like we're talking your golf game. It's so true.
There are a lot of parallels.
No, right?
There are a lot of parallels. I think I've become good at evaluating, what works, what doesn't work, because I had to do that on the golf course. I mean, there's no point in wasting time practicing something that's not working. So, and I think it's true in the business world and in your personal life as well. So,
the lesson is take in. I always say this, even when I played golf and then had a kid on my own, that mindset is all the same. Mm-hmm. It's like taking that lesson from the sport mm-hmm. and pulling it into the next chapter.
Right.
There's a reason.
Right.
Who's your biggest influence in this 18 years that helped you navigate this or helped you really be successful? $20 million 18 years later.
I really can't think of one person that stood out. I think it's just more that it was a community, mm-hmm. That you do recognize what your strong points are. And I was kind of more the face. I learned a lot where I could do a lot of other things too, but I'm still horrible on the computer, and the whole
never going to be your thing. It's never going to be.
Yeah, but I think it really was a community, and it's almost like we always talked about. They drank the Kool-Aid, where there's this community of people that have been to Africa, have seen poverty, and they want to come together and make a difference, whether it's through Golf Fore Africa or something else. Like when I go to a World Vision conference where they have their donors come together, it's so inspiring because we all want to make a difference in the world. And you have that feeling in that room. What can we do? And it does bring you closer together. You have this common goal. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but you want to do something to make a difference in the world, and that's what brings you together.
Yeah, I went to one of those conferences with mm-hmm. you in Chicago with my mom, and there's something, even just when we're at our event, mm-hmm. like I feel like just being in that community that triggers that thing that gets you away from your everyday life mm-hmm. and makes you go, oh, what else can I do? So like I was just telling you about this month, we're sharing you, but also we're sharing about this woman that's shifting education, and also the Kyle Peace Foundation with inclusion of disability kids and having them limitless. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I hear you saying.
Right.
Like, just get in a room mm-hmm. to really see what can spark inside of you.
Right.
What have you read any books? Because I know, God, we've read so many at the beginning of Rwanda. There were some mm-hmm. great books. Mm-hmm. Any books that someone who is listening could be inspired by? I know that one book that you love, Halftime.
Bob Buford.
By the way, we were like, well, he needs to write a new one because we're on overtime.
Well, there actually was a Dale Hansen Burke wrote kind of a female version to that called Second Calling, I believe. And it's just that you spend the first part of your life building security, and then the second part of your life doing something significant. And my challenge to that, particularly when I have the opportunity to talk to younger kids, is don't wait. We can all do something to make a difference now. Even if we're an 8-year-old in a third grade class, or a 25-year-old in the business world, do it now, because you really need to get involved in a cause bigger than yourself. It'll help you, and you can make a difference. So, and
I think. I think you've gifted that to all the players on the LPGA that have come. Mm-hmm. I just know from Mo or Kendall or mm-hmm. people really come because of you. Mm-hmm. What did Julie say? She just texts me a lot, but no, yeah. I mean, but they really come because of your passion.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because I know Catherine Kirk said that to me, that's why she went to Africa. She saw when I came back from Africa that I had changed, and so she wanted to be a part of that and see what was going on there. And I did, after this last event, I texted all the pros to thank them for participating, and I got some really nice responses and thank you for showing me what it looks like. And hopefully those players will do something themselves too, because they all have platforms, whether they're just starting out on the tour or not. That was one thing about Lorena Ochoa that I really admired, the star from Mexico who is also in the World Golf Hall of Fame, was I want to use my platform right away, because I don't know how long it's going to last. She said she had people tell her, hey, wait till you get yourself established on the tour before you do that. And she said, no, I want to start, as soon as I'm out there, I'm going to do it.
Well, I mean, she was how I got involved because I was at the first event with my mom and I knew Betsy King, but not really. And then you hopped in the car and that's how that's God.
Right.
Right. God is, or universe, however you want to say it.
Right. Puts you together.
Puts you the way it's supposed to be. But she does have the magic as well as you of having that deeper purpose. She always has. What would you say to someone, because there's so many players or people you've touched that kind of like they get moved and then I feel like that can happen even with me. Like you're moved at a moment and then it's like, okay, I'm back to my real life.
Right.
What, either a book or what advice would you give someone to keep that fuel or the fire to have that deeper purpose, selfless purpose?
It's interesting. I just thought of Rick Warren, who's a pastor that was out in California for many years. He wrote, this book is the best-selling book next to the Bible of all time, called The Purpose-Driven Life. So if you don't know what your purpose is, why God created you, this is what that book answers. And I've gone through it several times with a group, at a church, on my own. But the one, my favorite line in the book is right in the beginning, and it says, it's not about you. So, God didn't create us just to be here on earth, satisfy all our desires, see how much wealth we can accumulate and have a great time and then die. That's not why we're here. So I think that's probably that book can direct you to find what your purpose is more than anything else.
Great advice. I mean, one of my coaches always says, if you're fearful, even like asking to get money or your fear comes from your own thing. If you know you're doing your purpose, just ask. Right. Like make that step. Right. That's what I hear you saying. And it's so true. Like it's not about you. If you're here to serve, serve. What's next? Betsy, I know we're saying but okay, you don't have to share the direct things, but I always think, is there a book? I've had people talk about that, but I don't really have that in me to write something like that. But we're still, we just had our last event, 8th and 9th of December. So right now I'm still, reaching out to people to thank them for their participation. So I don't feel like I'm completely done yet, but almost. Although she was, because we did so well, she was like, I might stay another year.
Yeah, I know, as a joke. Hey, we need to close every year because we had such a great response. But I'm not in a rush. One thing I think I will do is I'm hoping to visit friends that I have around the country that maybe I haven't spent as much time with in person that I would have liked to in the past, just because I was doing this or doing that. I see myself doing that, visiting friends more, and not feeling that, okay, how can I work it in the conversation that can you help Golf Fore Africa?
Yeah, it's free. It's freeing.
It's very freeing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
18 years, you've done amazing work, and we're so proud of you. And I'm honored that I've got to see the table to watch you and be inspired by you and moved by you. And you've changed my daughter, and you hit home. I'm gonna cry, but you hit home just saying, youth has to get involved.
Right.
I don't know why I'm crying. Yeah, because it's true.
Right. Yeah. Don't wait.
It's just, it's part of, I think that's part of what's missing. Yeah.
If you get too self-absorbed, it's definitely not good.
I think you have one more trip in you, huh? Are you going in August?
I hope to go in August. So we'll talk about it after the first of the year. We have several people that are interested in going, so we'll do that.
Josie wants to go. We'll see.
Okay.
Any last wisdom for anyone going through a transition of something major in their life that you say, hey, this is whatever it is, because I know you have faith. What do you tell yourself in this moment when you retired golf? What is in your head to help you navigate your feeling of change?
Well, I was thinking about this, and it even goes back to when I picked what college am I going to. Anytime you have a major decision, there are hardly any decisions in life that you can change. So, okay, I chose this college. It ended up not being the one I wanted to go to. I can go to another college. Same thing. I think I want to go down this path. Well, it turned out I wasn't as good at that as I thought I was. I can move on to something else. And so to realize it's really not a life and death decision that you're making. And so you can always correct it if it ends up not being the right thing. And to me, that gives me the freedom to go ahead and step out and make a decision, because you do have to at some point make a decision.
Impact that you feel like you've done through Golf Fore Africa, one sentence or imprint, or what you hope people say.
Well, hopefully the help that we've brought to Africa is helping people to live a better life, and that the help that we brought will go beyond when I pass away. It'll still be there and still making a difference. So I feel very blessed to be able to say that.
So cool. Thank you, Betsy, and thank you for showing us the way you serve and the way you do it with such grace and honor, and that's why you had such a big following for 18 years on top of your golf career. And we're hopefully not leaving. I just wanted to share the story. Golf Fore Africa has done amazing work for everyone involved, donors and the people in Africa. So well done.
Yeah, thanks so much, Wendy. And it's Golf Fore Africa. Thank you so much. And it was great to be here with you today.
Thanks. Thank you, Matt, for listening to Journey to June. You can check us out on any of the podcasts. Leave us a review. We'd love to learn your feedback. And thanks, Bets.
Thank you.